Welcome to Law Help Australia, where we keep you informed with tips and updates. My name is Emily Tung, and today we're looking into the famous 457 visa and standard business sponsorships. But before we do that, let's meet our panel. We have Mary Vanderland. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
I'm a second-year Arts and Law student at Deakin Uni and an intern at AED.
And we have the famous Dinesh Werakody.
Emily, I've started studying law at Deakin University in 2000 and got admitted to practice to the Supreme Court in 2007 and has been practicing since then, and also been a migration lawyer since 2007.
And we have Nerida Turner from Turner English. Tell us about yourself, Nerida.
I'm a registered teacher and I graduated in 2004 and been teaching ever since, and I specialise in IELTS and PTE training.
Great. So let's get into it. Dinesh, explain what a 457 is and what its ability is about.
Emily, the 457 visa gives a sponsor an ability to get an overseas person to work in Australia. So its ability is just that. So there are three criteria though, but in short, an overseas worker can be employed in Australia, and under the sponsorship criteria, that person will have a visa to work here.
So what is a standard business sponsor?
There is a definition for standard business sponsor. It's defined in Regulation 1.03. It's a bit complicated. I'll read out what the law says. It means a person who is approved as a sponsor and approved as a sponsor by a delegate under Section 140E1 of the Act, and in relation to the standard business sponsor class. So that's how easy it is to understand who a standard business sponsor is. But usually, if you go to the laws and check to see if you meet the requirements, and if you can become a standard business sponsor.
So what are visas or classes of visas under this area?
Yes, the particular section that I referred to describes it in this. The minister must approve a person as a sponsor in relation to one or more classes prescribed for the purpose of a particular subsection if prescribed criteria are satisfied. So it's important to realize that the minister must, so the law compels the minister to give that status if certain requirements are met. Now, the classes of visas that you mentioned are quite important, because that gives an ability to sponsor various people, whether it will be a sports person, whether it's a religious person, a domestic worker, an entertainer. So the classes are quite substantial and huge.
So Dinesh, out of curiosity, can an entertainer come here on a visitor visa and perform?
Why not? But you have to be very careful. If we are talking about a visitor visa, there are certain conditions, obligations, restrictions, if I may say so, in a visitor visa. So if you are employed and if you get paid to do that performance, to do a sing-a-song or whatever, then you will be breaching visitor visa conditions. But on the other hand, if, say, for example, in an event, you are asked to do a bit of a show or a dance or whatever, and let's say it's a charitable organization and you're not expecting, or you're not given a payment or a wage for that, I don't see a harm how it would breach the no work condition in the visitor visa condition. So the answer depends on what you're doing at which point and why you're doing it, and so on. So the short answer, without complicating, is you have to be very careful and check your visa conditions.
Dinesh, you mentioned an overseas person. Does that mean they have to physically be overseas?
It's a good question, Emily. I didn't use the terminology in law to explain that. The idea in layman's term is this: a non-resident, a non-Australian, whether they're overseas or physically present in Australia, may have work restrictions. And a sponsor, standard 457 sponsor, will have the ability to sponsor that person, whether he is overseas or in Australia physically, for employment in Australia. So that's what I want to emphasize.
What are the criteria for approval as a standard business sponsor?
Yeah, so if you're a business, the standard business sponsor is a term that is used in law. There can be a number of, there are a number of criteria. For example, I'll go through the actual criteria, or some of the actual criteria. The applicant has applied for approval as a standard business sponsor. That means you have to apply. So you just because you are a business, it doesn't give you the right, so you have to apply in accordance with the process set out in the regulation. So if you don't follow that, the process will not start. Then the application shouldn't be or shouldn't have already an approval. So if you have an approval, you can vary the terms. That's a different issue or a question altogether. But if you are going, you shouldn't be already be a standard approved business. The sponsor must be lawfully operating a business. So if you're running a sort of a drug cartel or a business, it's not lawful. So you can't employ a drug dealer to work here because it's not lawfully operating.
Brothel?
It may be possible. It may be legally operating business. Maybe, I don't know. Depends on the circumstances. Also, it cannot be a shelf company. So it must be operating. And if you're not operating, you cannot meet the requirements to be a standard business sponsor.
What kind of evidence can you give the department to prove that you're lawful and operating?
The law does not exactly list exactly what kind of evidence that you need to give. The case officer needs to be satisfied the business is operating, lawfully operating. So your common sense would dictate registration, your ABN or ACN or whatnot, and lease documents. If you have a premises, if you have got it outright, you can give the title documents, your advertisements that you have placed, and your business contracts. So there's tax documents, bank statements, whatever you can provide to show that you're operating as a business.